Hi, everybody, and welcome to Gotham Baseball Live. I'm your one of your co-hosts, Mark Healey from Gotham Baseball, and with me, my new co-host, who we did our first one last week, went great, is Peter Schwartz. How are you, Peter?
I'm doing great, Mark, and it's a great day to be doing the show because today it's funny. We're doing this baseball podcast, but we're also just really a couple of weeks removed from all the excitement in this country over both the men's and women's Olympic USA hockey teams winning the gold medal in Milan, and now we're in the middle of, or at the start of, the World Baseball Classic. In fact, the United States will play their first pool game tonight, and it got me to thinking about our excitement level for this. We're both kind of old school, baseball people. I love baseball. I fell in love with it when I was young, and sometimes I don't really like the gimmicks that are attached to it. But I've always liked the World Baseball Classic. I'm not sure playing it before the season is the right way to do it, but I do think there is a buzz this year for it. Maybe there hasn't been in the past. I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm genuinely excited to see the United States, play on TV tonight and see if this is a team that can get back to winning a championship at this tournament.
Well, I've been on record for years hating, not liking the WBC, and then when Edwin Diaz got hurt, celebrating for Puerto Rico and basically lost them for the season, I was very, I went from, I used to not like the WBC to now I hate the WBC, but it upset a lot of people. And I was accused of being xenophobic and racist and, and here's the thing, you know, um, as you said, we're old school guys and we love baseball, right? It's always
Right.
been my favorite sport. Um, but one of the things I learned from interacting with a lot of different people who I respect, some people I don't respect, but at least I listened to their point of view
Mhm.
about where I was coming from the WBC. And I'm not going to say that I'm excited about it. I'm not going to say that I'm looking forward to it. What I am going to say is, my sister-in-law Tara always says I shouldn't yuck other people's yums, right? Which is kind of goofy, but when you think about it, people really love this thing. And, it's like soccer. I loathe soccer. I hate it so much with every fiber of my being, but I
Well,
also,
I'm not going to take you to a World Cup match with an extra ticket then.
no, definitely not. So, so, but one of the things I guess I've evolved about the WBC, and right now, like especially with so many players like really embracing it, probably more than ever. Um, the way I look at it now is that I certainly will try to watch making sure that guys stay healthy. That's really all
Yeah,
I care about. That they
yeah,
don't amp up too quickly, especially the pitchers like Lennon McLean, who I'm nervous as hell that he's going to be part of it, Peter.
right.
But I'm actually been invited by Anthony Rivera, who does Subway to Shea, and Kicking It with Keith, who does Shea and Sons, the podcast. They're doing a watch party next Tuesday for the WBC, and I've been invited to take part of that. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to watch my friends. Really, I have never watched a WBC game ever.
So
So this will be my
you're gonna go to the MLB store in Manhattan and you're gonna get that USA jersey with McLean on the
no,
back
no,
and get the
no,
hat. Yeah, come
no,
on, Mark.
no, not doing it. I have a very cool USA hat that I got from Baseballism. I'll wear that. But
Okay.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to, I will be, crossing all my fingers, and I'll have, whatever, I'll light some candles just to make sure that, because I believe it's the start is Tuesday. I think that's the game that Nolan McLean's going to pitch,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure. So I'll be watching and praying and hoping that everybody stays healthy. But I have evolved with the WBC. So
Yeah, yeah. I think I was in your camp when it first started, and I think the last WBC when it came down to Otani against Trout, with the championship on the line, it did create a lot of excitement. And again, I haven't been the biggest proponent of the NHL players playing in the Olympics because growing up and living through the Miracle on Ice, you will never see that again. We'll never
Right.
see, as
Right.
long as the NHL players are involved in it, which again, there were a couple of injuries this year. Sidney Crosby got hurt, and there was another player that got hurt. Remember, John Tavares got hurt in the Olympics some time ago and upset the Islanders. I don't think you can be too scared about that, but you wonder if the NHL will go back to doing it. In this case, again, I'm my problem with this is the timing
Yeah.
of it. I think if you're going to do something like this, maybe you do it in lieu of the All Star game. Although I'm a big All Star game guy, I don't know how you feel about it. I don't like the gimmicks in the All Star game either. But if you're going to do something like this every 3 years, maybe you do it over a week and a half, in lieu of the All Star game. But what I do also think, Mark, and I know we really wanted to talk about this, the fact that it is happening and it is going on, and spring training still continues for the Mets and the Yankees and all the other teams, the absence of some of the players, especially the star players, creates an opportunity for players for each team to shine while, the Aaron Judges of the world are away with Team USA and the Nolan McLean. So it gives, and we're going to focus on the Yankees and the Mets, but it gives some players maybe a little chance to shine and maybe a chance to get some at bats or get some innings, while other guys are away. And from my perspective, from a Yankees perspective, I'm going to look at two guys. One is Giancarlo Stanton. I think it's a huge opportunity for him. He just made his spring debut, earlier this week, and obviously there's some stuff going on with him where he claimed he couldn't open up a bottle and couldn't open up a bag of chips. So I think while the Aaron Judges of the world are away, it's a chance, and he's one of the unquestioned, leaders, of this Yankee team. So I think this is a chance for him to get some at bats while Judge is away. And I also think this is an important time for Oswaldo Cabrera, who's coming back from a major injury. So I'm going to look at those two Yankees. Cabrera is one of the most popular players on the Yankees team. And I think a lot of the people in the organization are really going to be excited to have him in the lineup, get him some at bats, and see where he is before the start of the season.
It's a great point. Obviously Judge is just so important to everything the Yankees do. And, this is a guy that in Stanton who was really supposed to be that guy. And, hearing about the elbows and not opening up a bag of chips. I mean, I know he was probably being, it was a
I can
little
open up a bottle.
soundbite. Yeah.
I got it. I got it.
But I think you're right. Obviously Cabrera is definitely one of those guys that everybody, like even Mets fans, can say like they support the guy and want to see him do well. But for the Mets, I was thinking about this. Full. It's like Peter and I talked about one of the things that we want to talk about, and this was obviously one of those things, one of those subjects that we wanted to discuss today. And I thought about it, and to me, there is definitely one that makes a lot of sense, and that's Christian Scott. Obviously, with Clay Holmes and McLean, pitching for Team USA, it allows a guy like Christian Scott, who's coming off, he basically missed a year and a half, and has already looked really good. This is a guy that wasn't really talked about for much of last season when people, when the pitching was breaking down, and people were talking about, possible, Mets that could come up and, Mets that could pitch, for the team in 2026 and be one of their prospects. He's almost like a forgotten prospect because he got hurt and he was out for so long. But Christian Scott was a guy that, before the McLeans of the world started to climb up the ladder, Christian Scott was considered, if not the number one pitching prospect for the Mets, certainly number two or number three. And he's looked healthy. He's looked great. And, let's say if McLean and Holmes were, here, maybe Christian Scott isn't getting, a serious look at the rotation. And, it's going to be very interesting to see how that rotation shapes up anyway, right? So I think Scott might be getting a little bit more of a look because of the WBC than, let's say, he might have if Clay Holmes and McLean here. But the other guy seems silly to even mention him, but it's Francisco Lindor.
Yeah.
Because if Lindor was healthy, he'd be playing for Puerto Rico right now. And or potentially could be playing for Puerto Rico. And I know he started his hitting progressions this week, hasn't played any games, but the thing that I was always talking about this whole off season on a bunch of spaces and different things like that is that the Mets have a brand new infield this year, right? They have a brand new third baseman, they have a brand new second baseman, and they have a brand new first baseman. And having your shortstop, he's around now. And, he's been taking some fielding drills, but he's been talking with Simeon. He's been talking with Bichette. He's been talking with Polanco. Obviously, Brett Beatty may play some first base. Mark Vientos might play some first base. So having Lindor here during this whole spring training, even though he's not playing and hopefully is ready for opening day, having that familiarity with basically, which is a brand new infield, I think is really important for
Yeah.
Lindor and ultimately really important for the Mets.
No question about it, because the one thing you wouldn't have wanted with Lindor was that if he chose to be at the WBC with his team, like you wouldn't have wanted him to not be playing and still being with the WBC. I think it's important that he's with the Mets and around it. And again, I know Steve Cohen doesn't want to name a captain, but for all intents and purposes, he is the unquestioned captain of the Mets, and to have him around and around the younger players. And listen, hopefully you'll get a chance to see him in a game very, very soon, and hopefully he gets the rust off in time for the start of the season. But I agree with you. I think it's a huge opportunity for him to be around the team, especially if he's not participating in the WBC, to have him. And when you talk about the younger players too, and the younger players getting a chance to get some innings like Christian Scott, it's not so much for them to be ready for opening day to pitch for the Mets. It could be simply to get a bigger look while he's a AAA or AA, because maybe he makes enough of an impression in spring training that he's the first phone call if something happens in April or May. So it's not necessarily an audition to be with the Mets on opening day, but it could be the audition to get that first phone call when the Mets need another pitcher.
Well, hopefully there are no injuries to the starting
Right.
rotation.
Right,
So we
right.
don't need that
No,
phone
I,
call.
I didn't want to give you a heart attack,
Yeah.
Mark. It's way too early for that. I'm sorry.
Well, look, it's one of those things when you're a Mets fan, you're always waiting for that other shoe to drop. I don't care who the owner
Yeah.
is. I don't care who the manager is. You just have that feeling. I mean, you're a Jets fan, right? So you
Oh,
you
yeah, yeah,
understand that feeling of impending doom. So,
yeah. During football season, I don't drink a lot of this. It's
right,
like
right.
other stuff.
Right. No, I
No,
got you. I got you. So, as we know, as we mentioned before, Dave Lennon from Newsday is going to be joining us in a little bit. But before we get to him, we want to remind people that this podcast, Gotham Baseball Live, is available on YouTube, and it's also available on the Gotham Baseball YouTube channel, which you can get to on the GothamBaseball.com homepage. You could follow Gotham Baseball on Twitter, on Instagram, and on YouTube. So we're asking people, to head over and subscribe for free on the YouTube page. We're also on Spotify, Gotham Baseball Live. And when you subscribe, not only do you find out that when the shows are dropping, but there's going to be plenty of times. Peter and I are both professionals in the sense that
well, I like to think I am.
right. Well, no, you're a professional. You are a big professional, my friend. When news breaks, whether it's Yankee news or Mets news or MLB news that may affect, the Gotham's teams, we'll be popping up and doing, maybe some, special shows. So it's good to be a subscriber. We're going to have some subscriber giveaways down the road. When you're a subscriber, you're part of the family, and we just want to welcome you to do that, to subscribe for free, both on the YouTube page and the Spotify. And, just look us up, Gotham Baseball Live. And, it's just, to me, like for you, and I know that you've been doing podcasts for a while too, Peter. It's fun when you can interact with subscribers and stuff like that, right?
Oh, there's no question. And I do another podcast, Sports Bash, and it's been growing, and to have people calling into the show, and then they interact on social media. Hey, couldn't hear the show live, but here's a comment to this, and I'd like to see the same thing happen here too. Like, we want to hear from Met and Yankee fans, and
Right.
to your point about popping up when when it's unexpected, when it's not the regular show. yeah, there's going to be news breaking, whether it's Mets or Yankees, even minor league stuff. But there's also special events that I'm sure we'll be able to be at.
Right.
You know, the Yankees and Mets always have those
Sure.
preseason events at the respective ballparks where we get to
Right.
stuff our face with food and find out about all the new promotional items and things like that. So I'm looking forward to us being at those events and just being there for the fans during the year. There's so much stuff that goes on during the course of the baseball season that we can't always do a show about it, but we can always
Right.
pop up and do a quick one.
Sure. And popping up right now, that's a hell of a segue. Popping up
Wow,
right now is our
talk
good
about a
buddy
professional.
is David Lennon from Newsday. We've known him for a really long time. He's an absolute pro. Welcome to the show, David. It's Mark Healey and Peter Schwartz.
Hey guys, hey Mark, hey Peter, how are you?
Doing great.
Doing great.
Doing great.
David's going to get sick of talking to me because he was on my other podcast not too long ago, so he
I
may get
can't
sick of talking to me.
I can't keep track of all these podcasts. It's flying through the internet. It's a lot. It's a lot to keep track of.
It certainly is, Dave. But I mean, it helps that we played together on the AP softball team so many years ago. So,
Yes, of course, man. That feels like a different lifetime ago
oh
at
my
this
God,
point.
you're not kidding.
Jeez.
You're not kidding. Anyway, my first question, Dave, is where are you right now? Where are you flitting around? Are you in Florida, Arizona?
I'm in Fort Myers right now, actually, kind of between camps. I started the spring with the Mets. I was there for about 8 or 9 days, and then I was over to Tampa after that for another 8 or 9 days. And since then, I've kind of bounced around a little bit. I saw the Yankees Red Sox the other day. I stopped in to see Team Puerto Rico, to see our old friend Edwin Diaz, to see how he was doing. Checked in on a Long Island kid from Centerport, Sean Keys, who's actually having a pretty good camp with the Blue Jays. He's still, I think, a couple years away. He was in High A last year, but he played first base for them yesterday. Reminds me a little bit of a kind of a lefty Pete Alonso.
Mhm.
Just big power. The glove is a little work in progress, but always good to catch up with the Long Island kid who's doing well.
David, when you were in Fort Myers with the Yankees and Red Sox, you got to see that monster home run that George Lombard, the
Sure.
Yankees' top prospect, hit.
Yep.
I think it might still be going. It's traveling north towards New York.
Yeah.
From what you've seen of him so far, there's been so many great stories and things said about him, and he's been so good in his development. Where do you see him now? Is he in the mix? Not necessarily to be with the Yankees opening day, but is he in the mix to get a shot at some point this season?
He's getting closer. I was joking with Boone the other day about it. It's just that every game he's in, he does something, whether it's a fantastic defensive play, the home run the other day. He had like a 108 mile an hour, single the other day to drive in a run. He's just the kind of guy that makes things happen. I know it's tough to judge in spring training. This is practice essentially for pitchers. So these games are not, for real. But they are, these players are trying to make impressions, him especially. And I just kind of compare it to, it's crazy to say this, but I'm not the only one to do it. He just kind of looks like a young A-Rod right now. Just a very, just a very lean build, kind of wiry. Before we saw the much bigger version of A-Rod, bigger, when he got to the Yankees and beyond that. I'm talking the Seattle A-Rod where he was kind of like, that kind of coiled, energy. And that's what this kid has. I mean, defensively, guys, he just makes plays that are extremely difficult look easy. He just moves at a different speed, whether it's backhanding balls, to his right at shortstop, making across the body throws. He's really a natural in that regard. The bat is going to start to come along. His offensive numbers, when he got to Double A last season, really kind of tailed off. He's seeing much better pitching at that point. But just a really mature kid, what you would expect from somebody who's the son of a major leaguer, former major leaguer. So really kind of has all the tools. You can deal with the spotlight. So this year, let's see how he does down at AAA. I think the Yankees would probably like to avoid that unless he really, starts coming along very quickly. But keep an eye on him. He's a guy that's pushing hard. People didn't expect to see Volpe in the major leagues 3 years ago, and he made the team
Right.
out of spring training. So later this year, I certainly wouldn't rule it out with Lombard.
So Dave, like you've been around New York baseball for a long time.
Sure.
You've seen the different changes that, both teams have made. Looking at the Mets and looking at third base, obviously, Bo Bichette's going to be playing there for the first time. A
Hmm.
lot's been made about, the errors that he's made, and it's to me, having a shortstop move to third base as opposed to, playing a different position other than third base. To me, I think a lot of it been overblown. I mean, obviously that's what spring training is for, right? It's
Right.
learning the position. Did you get the sense at any time when you were in camp with them that the Mets themselves are concerned about Bichette, about playing
No,
the
I mean
position?
the Mets, whether you talk to them, publicly or privately, they're all very confident that he'll be able to handle that position. They wouldn't have really made the deal, without that confidence. I mean, listen, third base is a different position, reflexively. You don't have as much time. The ball gets on you quickly. You don't get to play as deep as shortstop, obviously. But you have more time in that regard when you do get the ball, to get it over to first base. So I think that had been the biggest thing, that kind of internal clock he's trying to get used to maybe not rush. We've seen a couple throws from him that kind of haven't been the best. That's kind of set off alarms with people. But the advantage is it's the same side of the infield. The balls are coming at you in much the same way. We saw Jazz Chisholm move over there mid-season for the Yankees and handled it, very well for them. I mean, Jazz is actually, obviously a very good athlete. He's played a number of different positions. I think him and Bo are different type of players in that regard. But it speaks to the adjustment. And Bichette has a whole spring training to get used to playing over there, unlike Jazz did, who was just thrown in as soon as he came over in that mid-season trade. So Bichette still has some time. We still have a few weeks left. Almost 3 weeks left at this point before the season starts. So I wouldn't anticipate that being a problem for them. I didn't think it would be when he first came over, and even after watching it some in the spring, I just don't envision that.
David, the Mets made the decision to bring Carlos Mendoza back. I know David Stearns could have gone in another direction if he wanted to, but he decides to bring Mendoza back. I mean, just a year removed from going to the NLCS and a game out of the playoffs last year. You were around the Mets for a little bit so far in spring training. What's his demeanor been like? What's his outlook on the team as he gets another crack with this Mets team this year?
Well, I mean, one of the first questions I asked him, when we showed up for spring training was, I mean, he has to learn a whole new coaching staff. The roster turned over, so there's a lot of new players he has to learn. And that's something he hadn't done since his first year. He probably thought he was over that after year one, because he got up to speed that way and did very well in that first year. Obviously, I thought he was certainly a great manager of the year candidate. I thought he should have been manager of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Last year obviously was a problem. He had the best team in baseball for the first 2 months of the year, and then it went belly up after that. Actually, the first 10 weeks of the year or so. So yeah, I think his demeanor's fine. I mean, that's just who Mendoza is. I mean, he's a guy that can roll with the punches. I think he's a very good baseball guy. I think he knows the game. I think he has a good personality for relating to people. I do think it's a challenge, though, when you have a whole new coaching staff like that. He's got a new bench coach, which is something that managers rely on a lot, pitching coach, hitting coaches. So, yeah, we'll see how that pans out. I mean, spring training again is a time, for that familiarity. I don't envision that being a problem. I think Mendoza did it great the first time through. I think he'll be able to do it again. He relates to people very well. He got a ton of experience in the Yankee system. So, but it's a big year for him. I mean, this is a walk year for him. This is his last year of his guaranteed contract. The team has an option year after this. So, if this team gets off to a slow start, and has a terrible first 2 months, I think, Mendoza is going to be in the crosshairs. I haven't really heard that from people there. They like him. He has their full support clearly. but when expectations aren't met and things get out of control in the middle of a season, especially after the year they had last year, I'm not going to, I think everything's on the table at that point. So I think if the Mets get off to a slow start, I think you'll be hearing a lot about that.
Yeah, let's hope that doesn't happen, Dave.
Right. I personally I like Mendoza a lot.
I do
I
too.
thought he was a great pick for the Mets.
Yeah.
I thought I did a fantastic job in year one. He did a fantastic job for the first 10 weeks of last year. And it was the pitching staff that really kind of did him in at the end. So we'll see. I think that they should be okay. But as we know, as longtime Mets observers, things, a spark can turn into an inferno pretty quick over there in Flushing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'll see how it pans out.
So, one of the things that Peter and I have been talking about as far as with the Yankees and running it back and making the moves that they made. Obviously, Bednar is going to be solid as the closer. He was a very solid closer for them after they acquired him. But the rest of the bullpen, just as an outsider, when I look at it and I'm trying to figure out, where the Yankees are going to be this year, where am I picking them? The rest of that bullpen, to me is like, what if Bednar struggles the way Devin Williams struggled last year? Do the Yankees have a plan B if Bednar is somehow not, reliable? And who do you think their main leverage guys are going to be?
Well, I mean, they do have Camilo Doval, obviously, from the trade deadline last year. So they expect good things out of him. I know he was inconsistent when he came over, but I think a full spring can certainly help. It's tough to. Some guys really excel at those midseason trades when they come over and adjust very well. Other guys take a little bit longer. So I think he's in a good spot for that. I think he'd kind of be the next guy in line as well. So yeah, they do have some questions there. Fernando Cruz is a guy that I think they've relied on. They do have some young arms that have stretched out as starters that could be helpful in the bullpen too. You guys have heard a lot about LeGrande, the guy who throws 103. They see him as kind of a guy that could slip into the bullpen and really help out a lot, especially in those short bursts because they don't really see him developed as a starter yet. So with the Yankees, they tend to figure these things out. They'll find, some minor leaguers that they'll be able to patch in. And I really kind of wouldn't worry about the leverage. I think they have the back end kind of solidified to how they need it. I think Tim Hill is going to be another good asset for them, obviously.
Mhm.
He pitched very well. So I think it's early enough where you don't have to worry. I think right now, as long as their arms stay healthy, and Bednar and Duvall and those guys make it until the end in one piece, which doesn't always happen with the Yankees this time of year, as we know. I think they have enough. They have enough arms down there that they'll be able to sort out. So I don't. They don't really view that as a problem. I know fans have been looking for some certainty. They want to know who's pitching from the sixth inning all the way through. I think they're still sorting that out. As long as the back end is solid, and I think it is, as you mentioned with Bednar especially, I think they'll be fine beyond that.
David, the World Baseball Classic is underway. In fact, as we record this podcast, the United States opens up tonight. Just curious, your thoughts on this event. Obviously, we're coming off a couple of weeks removed from both United States hockey teams winning gold at the Olympics, so patriotism is really up there. Do you sense the same kind of buzz around the World Baseball Classic with Team USA? What are your feelings on it? And is the United States the team to beat in this tournament?
Yeah, I think they are. I mean, with the people they've added, I was a little disappointed that Scubal's only going to make one start for them and not be around beyond that. That kind of tempers the excitement a little bit with that. But yeah, I mean, anytime you can add Aaron Judge to your team, I think you're getting a lot better,
Yeah.
in one move there. But I covered it in 23. I covered the semis and the final. Those games were fantastic. Obviously, we had the showdown with Japan and Team USA at the end. But even the games before that, I mean, Mexico almost knocked off Japan in the semis. Japan had to get some late runs. I think it was in the seventh inning to pull that off. So the excitement around it has really grown. I mean, MLB has really, really pushed this event. I think it's really fun. I know there's a lot of detractors to it, and I understand. I mean, fans are nervous. They want their players to come back. I mean, Edwin Diaz is really the poster boy for all those concerns, for sure. But the players do really get excited about it. I mentioned I was
But
with two.
Mark is shaking his head because we talked about it before. He's still bummed out over a few years ago.
Yeah, I mean that was a season wrecker right there, you know. I mean, so it's a gamble. I think it'd be much better suited in the middle of the season. I think you hear players talk about that a lot because they're just not used to this time of year being ready for super competitive baseball. I mean, this is meant to just as a build-up. As an event, it's fantastic to have these players play for their countries. They love it. Like I mentioned to you, I was with Team Puerto Rico the other day. You know, their coaching staff, you know, the GM was Beltran. The coaching staff was like Edgar Martinez was on that staff. Carlos Delgado was there. And they're just the players, the coaches, the whole thing. They just have a blast with it. So I think it's great for the game too. They just have to keep their fingers crossed that there aren't any major injuries here. I mean, Judge, he's not a guy that even starts playing in spring training games
Yeah.
until like the second or third week. And now he's going to be playing in competitive games. So that's a little bit of a nervous time for the Yankees, I think, for sure. I mean, the Blue Jays have their entire infield, you know, playing in the World Baseball Classic. So there's a lot at stake here for the teams that have loaned their players out to it. But I think in the meantime, we're going to see some great baseball. I mean, look what happened last night in Japan while many of us were sleeping with the Shohei Ohtani Grand Slam. You saw what that stadium was like. You probably
It
saw footage of
erupted.
the Soto home run
Right.
playing in the exhibition against the Tigers in the Dominican Republic. That place went bonkers. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
that's great for the game. You know, players love it, fans love it. So the problem is like we said, you know, there's that dark cloud of potential injuries. Injuries can happen anywhere. They can happen in a Grapefruit League game and a Cactus League game. So it's just when you add this extra layer of the more competitive baseball, the worry is legit. And hopefully for the game, hopefully for the fans, that these players make it intact to get back to their respective teams in time for opening day.
Absolutely, Dave. And I really want to thank you for, making time to be with us today. Appreciate it. We'll see you down the road and have a great trip back to New York and enjoy the rest of spring training, my friend.
It's not snowing anymore, right? Are we
No,
above
no,
freezing? Okay.
no. We're above
Because the
freezing and it's
March,
not
I mean, the
snowing.
Mets open up on March 26th in Queens. I can't imagine it being very warm at that point.
Oh,
So,
let's hope so. Let's hope so.
There's
well,
just some remnants left. I think I'm going to go shovel the rest of it off to the side.
good. Thanks for having me on, and congrats on the launch of the new podcast. It was
All right,
great.
thanks, Dave. Thanks,
See you
Dave.
guys.
Thanks,
Yep.
David.
Take care.
Yep.